Hello YouTube, Professor Kadra here. Welcome to Tobacco 304 English Blends. English blends are among the most recognizable categories in pipe smoking, often the first blends people think of when they imagine traditional pipe tobacco. Today's representative blend is Pirate Kake. Pirate Kake is by Cornell Diehl. It's famous for its exceptionally high latakia content, 75%. It's also got Turkish and I'll give you that. You can get going.
Never used a cake tobacco before.
Whoops. So you could stuff it as a big chunk if you want, or you could rub it out. It works both ways. So while this is not representative of the average English blend, it's a great way to experience what latakia contributes to a mixture, since it's such a high content of it. So for that reason, I was chosen as an effective teaching blend.
Nice.
All right. Light that up.
What a smell. You smell that latakia.
Taste it as well.
Absolutely.
So at its core, an English blend is built around the combination of Virginia Oriental tobaccos and latakia. Unlike many aromatics, traditional English blends rely on the natural flavors of the tobacco rather than any added flavorings. There's no single official recipe, so the balance of these components varies from blend to blend. For instance, this doesn't have any Virginia, despite that being such a common foundation of the English tobacco. I guess they kind of replaced the Virginia with the latakia for this one.
So I know English is...
My goodness, is it smoky.
It is. I'm sensitive to latakia myself, so it almost tastes probably similar to me, a blend that had 20% latakia. But I really, it is nice to actually taste it in such high proportions, though, to really get a sense of the nuances of the flavor rather than just being a condiment that...
Something that you detect in there, and like its presence is always kind of known, regardless of the amount of it. But it really lets it take center stage without having to kind of shove anything out of the way, right?
Absolutely.
There's not anything else really in there competing for attention. Reminds me of peaty whiskey.
Definitely, which I love.
So why is it called an English blend? Something to discuss. The term English blend does not refer to where the tobacco was grown or even produced. It's based on where it was produced at the time, but it no longer has anything to do with that. Historically, British tobacco regulations prohibited the addition of flavorings to pipe tobacco.
The purity laws, right?
Yeah. As a result, traditional British blends relied solely on the natural flavors of tobacco, such as Virginia, Oriental, and latakia. And these naturally flavored mixtures became known as English blends. Today, the term generally refers to blends built around those tobaccos rather than the country of origin.
That's where it gets a little confusing for me, because I guess I always thought of an English blend as one that, has no casings or toppings, I should say, which makes sense. But technically, like, all of our vapors and straight Virginias would also comply with those English purity laws, right?
There's plenty of non-latakia based blends that would comply with those laws, absolutely.
But they're not categorized as English because I guess these particular tobaccos, especially the latakia, were a component that was strongly considered associated with those type of blends.
Yeah, the three main ones are the Virginia, Oriental, and latakia. Sometimes you'll get some burley in there. That's definitely less common. That's really more common to American blends, I think. But you will find burley, such as in this one. I imagine this blend needed the burley. Like, it's like to be 75% latakia and have other Orientals, you got to have some body in there. Otherwise, it might just feel a little bit like wispy, incensey smoke without any real tobacco.
It's actually really good.
There. It reminds me of a barbecue. It reminds me of peated whiskey. It reminds me of campfire.
Yeah, the smoky, is obviously what you notice with the Latakia. What interests me is we recently had um, one that had dark fired Kentucky in it, and I initially was like, "Oh, it tastes like Latakia," because I don't have that broad of a palate yet.
Hmm.
But so the smoky and the campfire, there's definitely a lot of crossover there, but the incense quality is different.
Yeah, it's got a floral kind of quality to it.
Yep, and actually, not in a bad way, but when I first light, I almost taste like soap, which is like that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But what's nice is some of the other English blends I've had, I was trying to taste anything but the Latakia. With this one, I can just appreciate the Latakia because I'm not really trying to taste anything but the Latakia.
Right.
So I'm actually enjoying it more, maybe just psychologically for that reason,
Hmm.
because I'm just trying to appreciate what it is
Right.
rather than feeling like it masked out the other stuff.
What did you go for? Did you go for the stuff the cake in there or rub out?
Well, I stuffed the cake in there,
And then
kind of
put
fell apart a little bit, pushed it down, then put a little more on top,
so somewhere in the middle.
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
And cakes are kind of a mess, aren't they?
there's a reason they're not my favorite. They're just like I find the flake preparation, even though it may be a little bit more involved, a bit more rewarding
They
than
all.
than the cake preparation that you have to go through beforehand. It's a little bit extra work.
Well, it's interesting too, because like you know, I guess there's pros and cons to the way ribbons versus flakes, which I'm most familiar with. Those two, um, smoke. I mean, the flakes are pressed together and they're denser. You have
Mm.
less. Whereas the ribbons, there's a sort of a fluffy, airflow getting in through everything, kind of feeling to it. This kind of has. It doesn't really have the density of a flake. It's not ribbon
It's a
cut,
little spongy.
but it's spongy and it falls apart kind of naturally. And
Yeah.
there's some natural airflow, even though it's packed in there tightly. It's separated. It's small
Right.
pieces. It's a
Right.
bunch
It's
of small
definitely not. It's
pieces.
definitely not a plug. We've been talking about a couple things we've been getting here from this blend. They're common characteristics of English blends: smoky flavors, leather, wood smoke, earthiness. We've talked about incense, a savory complexity. Definitely savory would be like the
Oh,
flavor
for sure.
family.
There's a slight,
Much of that's from the Latakia.
and again, it could just be the it's ever so slight, but there's a slight, like, I hesitate to say, but almost licoricey, anisey sort of quality I get occasionally, and I'm not sure.
I get that
You
as
get what
well.
I'm saying? I
Yeah,
think it's part of
yeah,
the incense quality.
yeah. Similar kind of blend is a Balkan blend. We'll have a seminar for that as well.
This is where I really trip up because the Latakia makes them all taste similar to
Right.
me.
And then they typically are based on, both of them, Virginia Oriental and Latakia tobacco. Those make it up. Distinction generally comes down to the emphasis. The English tend to be Latakia forward, and the Balkan blends place a greater emphasis on the Oriental tobaccos.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, in a future seminar, we'll explore that distinction. It'll be a probably good comparison to this one because this is such a Latakia heavy blend to compare the Balkan blend back to it, which will have Latakia but feature it less.
I know we've talked about this before. How, like, there's, when we talk about tobacco types, there's some, a lot of times there's different tobacco leaves like burley leaf and Virginia leaf, but then the process that's used is often complementary to that leaf. So the way it's cured,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll deal with, so for example, but then you also have your continental tobaccos like Perique, which is ultimately a burley leaf that is treated
Right.
and prepared in a certain way. You have Cavendish, which I don't think is specific to a particular leaf. It can
No,
be
you can.
Virginia, it
Yeah.
can be burley. Um, but when it comes to Latakia, which is clearly a process, a smoke,
Mm-hmm.
but what is the? Do you know what the leaf that the core leaf of Latakia is?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
curious.
like what type of leaf? It's
Yeah,
an
what type of leaf?
Oriental. It's an
It's an
Oriental.
Oriental leaf.
Yeah.
So, and there are different Oriental leaves. We categorize them as
Yeah,
Orientals,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
forget what
There's
there's.
50 or more probably.
Right. So
This one I think particularly calls out Turkish. Yeah, but there's plenty.
it actually, it's really good.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
I don't know that I'd want it a lot or terribly often, but if I wanted,
This,
like the similar kind of thing, like what I would want out of a peaty whiskey,
right?
this would really fill that role well.
Well, I think of it a lot like I think of food, like certain foods that we could probably eat a lot every day or most of the days.
Yeah.
And then there's certain times where it's like I want a bowl of ice cream, or I want a banana, or I want a nice juicy steak. But you might love steak, but if you had to have it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert every day, you'd kind of not really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So there's a time and a place for a lot of these things, and you know,
Yeah, I think that would be the kind of role that this would have for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's desserty in a way, like it's filling scratching an itch.
It's a specific itch that doesn't always need to be scratched. It's not always present.
But I could see some people liking this every day too, day in and day out. For their palate,
I could see it. I could see it. Yeah.
Pirate Kake. I wonder why they call it that.
It's part of the Sea Scoundrels series. Cornell and Diehl does a lot of series type releases.
Right.
So there's this one's the Sea Scoundrels, I believe it's called. I don't know if they call that out on the tin. Usually they do call out the series on the tin, but that's not the case with this one.
So Cornell and Diehl is an American company,
Mm-hmm.
and you said they're the only American company for the major tobaccos.
As far as I know, yeah, I think it was just them and Sutliff, and then about a year and a half ago they ceased operations. The big loss for the American tobacco world.
So where are all the tobacco shops getting their bulk aromatics and stuff?
Probably getting them from Cornell and Diehl or Lane Limited, I would think.
And Lane is based where?
I think Denmark or Germany.
Are they part of the Scandinavian Tobacco Group?
Yeah, they're part of STG.
It's interesting how when you get into a hobby, eventually, little by little, you start just picking up. Yeah. Like someone that likes baseball knows all the stats. You just kind of start to learn this stuff.
You just yeah. You can't help but I've greatly increased my soccer vocabulary with the World Cup that's been going on.
Right.
In our own backyard.
I find it I actually really enjoy it, and maybe it's just because of contrast. I've been heavily just enjoying Virginias and Vapors lately.
Yeah, there's something to be said about breaking it up a little bit.
Yep.
Appreciating that.
But the smoky character is consistent.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like I like how you kind of said like a peated. We both appreciate peated whiskeys,
Yeah.
and there's something where it's almost like I don't always want something that's just lightly peated. If I want a peated whiskey, sometimes I want Octomore. I want, you know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of what this is. It's just right there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good comparison. So, who should try English blends? Usually enjoyed by people who like natural tobacco flavor, complexity, smoky character, less sweetness than many Virginia or aromatic blends. I know I prefer Virginia blends. I like an English well enough, but my preference does lie for Virginias. Englishes can definitely be an acquired taste, but many smokers eventually consider them something of a cornerstone of the hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, English blends, they represent one of pipe smoking's classic tradition. Whether it's heavily smoky like Pirate Kake or more balanced in composition, they showcase what can be achieved using only natural tobacco flavors, which, like we were talking about, Virginias will serve as well. A lot like maybe there's a casing or a topping that would technically not pass the older purity laws. But there's plenty of non-English blends that focus on natural tobacco as well.
Yeah, a lot of what I've been interested in is whether it's Virginias, Virginia Burleys, Virginia Perique. I guess they would often, they might, like you said, there might be a top or casing that's involved, but a lot of them aren't,
Yeah, beyond what's necessary to have like a lasting product.
Right.
Soon we'll examine Balkan blends, where the Oriental tobaccos take an even more prominent role, and certainly a much more prominent role than this one, with the Latakia being such a heavy aspect. The the Balkan blend, it's going to be a much less present ingredient.
Yeah, I just I was curious about Balkan blends myself, and Rob just had me try one of these New Minster number 80, I think it was,
Uh-huh.
and it was, what did you say it was? It was Orientals and Burley,
I think
or
that's what it was. I could look it
but
up.
I was expecting some more obvious Oriental notes, and I'm still trying to parse out the nature and quality of Oriental tobaccos. So I think what it's going to come down to is I just have to smoke a larger variety of them, and over time I'll start to
Mm-hmm.
really parse it out.
It's a Virginia Burley and Orientals in that one.
So there was Virginia, which I didn't really taste, which I found surprising.
Which is interesting. The Orientals must have masked it
Yeah,
pretty well there, because I think that's really where the Virginia flavors would be competing.
but it tasted to me. I would have described it as what I feel like anyway, as a burley blend. Like it tasted
Mm-hmm.
burley esque, um, but there's always
More
something
burley
else going on.
forward, yeah.
Yeah, but what do I know? Could have been the Virginias the Orientals I was tasting.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, thanks for watching.